Sometimes Disney movies aren't what they seem. They might be nice and happy and colorful on the surface, but as you dig deeper, they can get dark. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily and today we'll be counting down our list of the top 10 terrifying Disney Incredible theories you need to pray aren't real. And let me just say, The Incredibles is one of my favorite Disney Pixar animated films, so I hope none of these ruin my childhood. Fingers crossed. Number 10. Edna Mode is a reformed villain. Yep, you heard that right. Our beloved supersuit seamstress could have been a villain. There are 5 straightforward points to why this is believed. In the film, Edna has a throwaway line about not looking back, dwelling on the past, because it's distracting, and this might be in line with her need to forget her days of villainy. She also seems to be overzealous about seeing heroes in danger or witnessing dangerous combat, almost to a pathological level, and in general, her entire facility is somewhat villainous. It's like an evil lair. It's equipped with auto turrets, flamethrowers, and explosive ordnance. I mean, it's surrounded by a gate and has armed guards, like, come on. Now, other supers and those associated with them live in hiding, but they don't seem to feel that they are in any sort of danger in their day to day, and neither does Edna. She has those things because she likes them. Well, except for her guards, perhaps because they're actually government handlers as opposed to guards. And lastly, she made a suit for Jack. The Parrs never even considered a suit for him, but because Edna thinks like a villain, she accurately predicted Jack would become a target of Syndrome. Number 9. Syndrome is actually a super and his power is intelligence. Very early in the movie, Buddy, later known as Syndrome, admits that he has no powers but makes up for it with his inventions. The first inventions we see are his rocket boots, and later we see tons of brilliant gadgets such as zero-point energy, tiny bombs, life sign scanning probes, and an artificially intelligent battle robot. All of these brilliant inventions make people think Syndrome actually did have a superpower. Super intelligence. Now, one might say Syndrome wasn't actually very smart because he made some really idiotic mistakes, such as letting the Incredibles live, using a cape, and underestimating his battle robot's intelligence. However, these mistakes have more to do with his arrogance than his intelligence. He was so smart that he considered himself unbeatable, which caused him to grossly underestimate his enemies. This led to his master plan failing almost immediately, as well as his death, but if his ego didn't get in the way, he probably would have succeeded with his intelligence. Number 8. Mr. and Mrs. Incredible possess clairvoyance. Mr. and Mrs. Incredible have 3 children, Violet, Dash, and Jack. Each child seems to be obviously named for their superpowers. Dash has super speed, so his name perfectly reflects his ability. Violet can disappear, which is like the ultraviolet spectrum in light that humans can't see, and she can also create force fields, which just so happen to be the color violet. Jack begins to show his powers at the end of the movie, and it turns out he has a range of different powers, making him somewhat a jack of all trades. Now, unless Dash and Violet were named after displaying their powers, or unless their powers surfaced right at birth, then Bob and Helen got really lucky that their powers just happened to perfectly match their names. But we know that Jack was not named after his powers being displayed because they don't surface until well after his birth and name are given. If Jack is any indication, then the other 2 kids were named before displaying powers. What are the chances of just randomly picking 3 names that match superpowers so well? The theory is one or both of the parents have clairvoyance and were attracted to those names because on some level they subconsciously knew those names would work out perfectly. You know what? This actually makes sense to me. Number 7. Violet is not Bob's daughter. You remember Snug, the man who had the jet, right? Yep, well, he is Violet's father. Why? Well, since the Parr family have been constantly moving because of Bob's inability to maintain a steady job, it would have been difficult for Helen to sustain her adulterous relationship with Snug throughout her married life. Therefore, Helen could have slept with Snug before the supers were outlawed or immediately after the supers were outlawed. And conveniently so, Violet is her firstborn, and second of all, Helen keeps a picture of Snug snug in her room next to the picture of her family. Now, we do not see a picture of Bob with any of his old colleagues, which is strange. She could have had Snug's child, which is why Snug let her a jet without complaining, and in Helen's own words, "I'm calling in a solid you owe me." Thirdly, Violet is the weirdest kid of all three. I mean, everything about her is strange. She is weird and moody while the boys are full of energy. She is introverted while the boys are extroverts. And now you could say this is because she's a teenager, but I mean, even her powers are weird. Bob's power is super strength and invulnerability, Dash is super fast, and Jack is the most powerful, a shapeshifter, while Violet's powers are invisibility and force fields, which are defensive powers. Clearly, she did not get the attacking gene of Mr. Incredible, so this leads to Snug. Also, the most obvious sign, Violet's face is shaped like a football, which is not the head shape of both Helen and Bob, it's the same as Snug's. Case closed. Number 6. Violet Parr is an older Boo from Monsters, Inc. We all know that Pixar likes to connect their movies, right? Well, what if The Incredibles and Monsters, Inc. were connected? When Sully and Boo play hide and seek in the locker room, Sully is amazed at how good she is at hiding. People think this is because her powers are assisting her, as she's subconsciously using them to become invisible. Initially, Violet struggles to use her powers in the movie when she really needs them for lack of confidence. Boo is only able to use her powers when she's having fun with Sully, but not when she's in real danger. And also, Boo is comfortable with Sully because his big hulking frame is reminiscent of her father's. Yeah. Also, early on in Monsters, Inc., it is established how each professional scarer is assigned to children that suit them best. Randall's camouflage or invisibility would be ideal for a toddler coming to terms having similar superpowers. Randall would be the representation of what Boo doesn't understand about herself or possibly what she may become, and also, they just look similar. Number 5. Syndrome is the son of Psycwave and Universal Man. This theory suggests that Buddy Pine, aka Syndrome, is a non-super even though he's the son of two super-powered beings, specifically Psycwave and Universal Man. Now, Buddy clearly has a complex. He desperately wishes to be a hero, and Bob seems to be familiar with Buddy's mother, and it's established the Parrs are friends with many superheroes. Psycwave and Universal Man are first on Syndrome's list to take out, if you know what I mean, suggesting a personal vendetta against them. And finally, Syndrome's island is similar to that of Phantomix, a former superhero team which included Psycwave. Number 4. Edna is Violet's mother. Flipping the script here, what if Violet had a different mother? What if Violet Parr is not actually part of the Parr family, but rather the daughter of Edna Mode, given up to the Parrs for safekeeping? First, there's Violet's look in general. All other members of the Parr family are drawn similarly. Dash, for example, has blonde hair like his father and a pointed nose like his mother. Baby Jack has reddish blonde hair, picking up some of the reddish brown tones of his mother's hair and a pointed nose. Meanwhile, Violet has black hair and a round nose, which is far more similar to Edna. In the description for the first film, it says that Edna was called out of her 15-year retirement to fix Bob's supersuit. Violet is 14 years old in the first movie. What if Edna retired when the government banned superheroes, but didn't know she was pregnant at the time? Without any help from the government, when Violet was born and displayed powers, Edna decided to give her to a superhero couple who she trusted above everyone else, the Parrs. But as things began to change for superheroes, and with Bob and Helen taking on more responsibility, one of the motivating factors in Edna coming out of retirement was to help keep her daughter safe. Aw, that's so cute. Number 3. The government worked with Syndrome to wipe out the supers. The government agents in The Incredibles had to watch the supers while they were retired to make sure they didn't reveal themselves to strangers. Due to this, they run the relocation program, and when Mr. Incredible throws his boss through several walls, an agent offers to relocate him, then decides it would be better to wipe away everyone's memory. So their job is to watch supers so they could prevent situations like that. Now, if their job is to watch the supers, why didn't they do anything or show concern when supers were disappearing? How did they not know that they were being taken to Syndrome's island? That was their job. And according to the film, a majority of the supers died, so it's strange that they didn't care. That is, unless they were in on it and were working with Syndrome, or at least allowing his experiments. Syndrome was the best solution with dealing with supers. Killing them off meant the government didn't have to spend a fortune protecting them and cleaning up their mistakes. In exchange, Syndrome was making high tech for the government. Syndrome was a business business entrepreneur, he had to have high-end customers, and it makes sense he would sell to the government. He then betrays them when he takes over the city, but still no one really cared when he ended the lives of supers. Number 2. Edna sabotaged Syndrome by making him a cape. Oh, that's downright evil, but hear me out. Edna is strongly opposed to capes for very practical reasons. Super Stratogale was only in The Incredibles for a moment during the montage, conveying the danger of capes, as she was the one who got sucked into the turbine of a jumbo jet. Later in the movie, we catch a glimpse of her record, which specifies that she was a high school student. The theory goes that Edna's aversion to capes is so strong because she feels responsible for this death. But the theory also speculates Syndrome came to her for his costume design, wanting to follow in Mr. Incredible's footsteps, and she built in a cape to sabotage him, knowing he was villainous. And that's exactly how Syndrome died, by his cape getting sucked into the turbine of a jet, so who knows if that was a setup. And coming in at number 1, the government eradicated all super villains after the heroes were forced into retirement. When you put the supers into hiding, what happens to the villains? Well, it's said that the government carried out a purge of all supervillains when the superheroes were forced to retire. Think about it. All villains we see in the movie are normal humans. They don't have any evil powers. For example, the guy with the missile during the no capes montage is just an ordinary man with a missile pointed at a city. A few policemen could have stopped him. Same for Bon Voyage, they didn't need a super to stop him. And the Underminer is similarly a man with a massive drill, and that's about it. Truth be told, Syndrome is the only real threat, and his tech is leagues above the other villains. Now, I understand wanting to get rid of villains, but they couldn't just put them in jail or rehabilitate them. They had to end their lives. And how good of a person are you if you do that? Huh? Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 terrifying Disney Incredible theories you need to pray aren't real. Do you think any of these could be real? I definitely think so. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe while you're down there. I'm your host Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace.